What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Chae Cole, and I'm super excited to get into another episode. So let's hop into it. And so, over the past few weeks, we've been kind of going through some personal testimonies, and this will be the last kind of installment into just talking about those things, and we'll shift to something else. But I really want to talk today about what drives you as I reflect on some of my encounters and some of the episodes and some of the things that I've shared, even on here. I was reflecting last week and just about some other things and career wise or just life wise, and seeing the patterns of different things that have occurred. And those things tend to drive me because you start to see some patterns in how certain things may transpire in your life, and how God comes through in all of those situations. And I think it's important that we understand what drives us, what fuels us to achieve the things that we want to achieve, or why we move and operate the way that we do. And so as I'm reflecting, I'm thinking back to some of my early memories and some of the things that I didn't share on here. And it really had me thinking about those situations and those circumstances that have fueled me to becoming the man I am today. I remember one of the most memorable times in my life that kind of shapes me in terms of who I am today and who I've become even, is one of the patterns that I recognize is I'm often overlooked and not the person that would be chosen for certain things, right? I'm not the stature wise, I'm not the most impressive. When it comes to athletics, I wasn't the biggest guy on the basketball. I'm not in, like I said, stature wise, I'm not impressive anyway. So of course on the basketball court, I wasn't that type of guy either, often the smallest person on the court. But there's one particular moment, well, I'll talk about two in this episode, just in terms of playing basketball. I remember one of the earliest moments that shaped, who I am and drive me still to this day, is middle school basketball in my seventh grade year. I had started the first 4 or 5 games. I'm coming off my best game, as I was at the time the only seventh grader starting for our seventh and eighth grade team. And so I was the only seventh grader starting. I was the point guard. And like I said, I'm coming off my best game. We got a game at home coming up. And I'm like, yeah, man, like telling people like, yo, I'm getting it. I'm hooping, y'all. Like this is what we do. And so, the like I said, I'm coming off my best game of the entire season. And coach goes through starting lineups before the game, and I'm not in the starting lineup anymore. And so I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. It is what it is. And then, first quarter goes by. We're halfway through the first quarter. He makes the first subs. I'm thinking maybe I'll be the first one off the bench type thing. I haven't gotten in. First quarter goes by, still haven't gotten in. Second quarter, I haven't played a minute in the game. So, I'm already down like seventh grade. You can imagine how that is going. Halftime, nothing said. Everybody's looking. Everybody's wondering, like, why isn't Chae playing? Like, what happened? What's going on? Right? So I'm like, all right, well, whatever. Third quarter, same thing. I still haven't played. Not, like I said, not 1 minute, not 1 second in the game. Fourth quarter, I'll never forget this moment in my life. Fourth quarter, we're up, by 13 or whatever the case may be. So the game's pretty much over because it's less than a minute left to go in the game. And then my coach says, Chae, sub in. I looked at the clock. It was 22 seconds left in the game. And he tells me to sub in. So I didn't even make it to the scores table because I kind of got up slowly. I'm like, yo, I haven't played the whole game. I've been starting all year. This is wild, right? And and so I remember like the end of the baseline was here, the back of my foot was like right there. Like I barely stepped on the court. And the crazier thing is he wanted me to shoot the ball when they passed it to me. We're up 13. Um, and like told him to pass me the ball too. Like that's was so ridiculous. So they passed me the ball. He wanted me to shoot, but I passed it right back to the person that passed it to me. And the clock ran out, and we shook hands and went to the locker room. Um, yeah. And so I didn't start another game that year. I got to play some, but I didn't start ever again that season. And so, that fueled me to work even harder over the summer. Like we had a new coach the next year, all those types of things. So I was back to starting, and that was one of the few times that I didn't start during my career, middle school, high school, just playing basketball. So then, fast forwarding to a less drastic scenario or situation. I'll give y'all three. I remember my freshman year in high school, I was playing JV at the time, and again, me and my boy Caleb Drake, we were starting JV. At the time, we were the only ninth graders starting for our ninth and 10th grade team. And I remember our coach wanted to start some other people. Like they were really good the year before, and so everybody, was like thought they knew who was gonna be starting and stuff. So we kind of took some people's spots and all that kind of stuff. So we started again 4 or 5 games, and then the coach wanted to make a little switch, so he pulled me and my boy out. We didn't start this one particular game, and we were both sitting on the bench. We were like, man, when we get in, like we going off. And so got in, both went off. That was the last game we didn't start together. So yeah, so like I said, a less drastic scenario. We subbed in. We were the first ones off the bench, but and then just remembering even on the basketball court, and the rest of the years, like being the smallest person on the court, and sometimes guarding like the tallest ones, just because teams get switched or people not paying attention or whatever, and being able to choose heart over height in those situations, in those circumstances. A non-sports related situation, I remember my journey as a RA. Initially, I was, in college. Like I said, I'm reserved. I'm an introvert, so I'm reserved. And so my cousin Kalia, who's been on the podcast before, she was a RA. She was a head RA, and so seeing what she does and learning from her was like, that's something I could do. Plus, it helps with room, covers your room, so it makes sense financially. You get paid to do it, all those things, right? So I applied to be a RA. I didn't get selected. I was on the alternate list. So if somebody's grades weren't right, or somebody just wasn't coming back, then I would be selected. And so that was going into the summer. I received a phone call that I had been selected to be placed to be an RA. And so I went from an alternate to actually, I wasn't an alternate very long. I got the call over the summer. And so from there to that next year, I applied to be a head RA. And, I'm going up against people who had done it for 2 years, people who were more seasoned in the position. And and I ended up being selected to be a head RA for that next year, that following year. So I went from alternate to a hit already within a year. So it doesn't even stop there, because even in my professional career now, I don't even know if they know that I know, but um, like the position that I'm in now, I know that they didn't want to pick me, and someone had to advocate for me to get in that position. And so, as you see, like the pattern has been, being overlooked, or being not the first choice, not everyone's first choice for something. And so that really fuels me, not in, and you have to be careful, you have to caution yourself, because it's not always about you. But I think what it shows me is that sometimes these situations and these circumstances occur so that you can be an example of what God can do. God will take the least of these, and this is actually going to make me switch the scripture that I was going to use. And so, yeah, just thinking about those different things, and it can be tough. The dark side of that is dealing with that rejection from some of the previous things I talked about in the past, to where it's like you start to embody that, to where you're not the first pick, you're not really anyone's top choice, it may seem like, and you can start to take that on. But I think what it's taught me is to continue to persevere no matter what, because even when, so even in the RA example, I was selected RA of the year that I was a head RA, and even my senior year of high school basketball, I was selected MVP for the team, and all conference, and all these different things. But it took the drive from being told to go in the game with 22 seconds left, and just being able to navigate those different situations and circumstances with grace, with character, not pouting or anything like that. Not saying that those situations didn't hurt, because they did. It's just about persevering through. And so changing the scripture, just based on how I navigated the episode, 1 Samuel 16, verse 7, this is when Samuel is going to anoint a king in the house of Jesse, and he goes through all the sons, but he couldn't find one. And so it says, verse 7 says, "But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." And so I share all that to say, what drives you? What is fueling you? I think there's a significance in putting God first. There's a significance in understanding that what you carry, what you have, it fuels you, because certain people, certain things will look at your resume. Certain things will look at who has co-signed you, or who referred you, or what degree you have, or what school you went to. But it doesn't matter about those things. Look at your life. Look at the different situations and the different circumstances that you may have been through, may have dealt with, because King David was just the one that they overlooked. He was the one that was in the field. He was the one that was tending to the sheep, and his father didn't think much of him, but he was the one that God had selected to be king, right? And so even when you look at 1 Samuel 17, and this is where I was originally going to go, it says in 1 Samuel 17, David said to Saul, "Your servant used to keep his father's sheep, and when a lion or a bear came and took the lamb out of the flock, I went after it and struck it and delivered the lamb from its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing he has defied the armies of the living God." right? I'm gonna stop there because we've talked about lion and bear season. It was that lion and bear season that fueled him. It was the lion and bear season and the belief in God that fueled David, right? They looked at his appearance. They looked at his stature. They looked at what his age, and that he was just a young boy, and they thought that he couldn't do it. They thought that he wasn't equipped enough. And so I feel that many of you can relate to that experience, that you've been applying for jobs, and they sense that you're not equipped to do the job. You can get the interview, or maybe you can't get the interview, but continue to persevere through it. Continue to push through it. No matter what person has overlooked you, I think we have to get to a place. I share all of this to say what drives you, what fuels you, to say that if the Lord is with you, who can be against you? Let God direct your path. Trust God with that thing. Trust God for real, for real. Because I think as believers, I know it can be tough sometimes. Like, why am I not going through this? Why am I not obtaining this thing? I've seen all my peers seem like they're reaching success. It seems like they're having success in these areas. It's, Lord, you know, you hear my cry, and yet I don't know why this is happening to me. And so it's a real experience to be overlooked, to be undervalued, to be unappreciated, to have the credentials and yet still not be selected. But I think when we really, truly understand what God has for me is for me, it makes it all the better. It makes so much more of a difference. And I think there's a place of trust. There's a level of security in God that we have to get to as believers, as people of God, as people trying to navigate life. Right? So what drives you? Look back over your life. Think about what you have been able to do, what has happened, what has occurred in your life, what has been the motivational piece for you. Sometimes, yes, I know the situations have been hard. I know that these things have been difficult, but you have to learn how to use those situations where people have overlooked you or haven't selected you, or certain situations have occurred in your life that you're like, man, this is worth noting, and look at the pattern and say, Lord, you didn't fail me then, and you won't fail me now. So, Lord, I choose to trust you no matter what this circumstance looks like. I know that I can trust you because he's never failed us, and he never will. So I hope this episode encouraged you and inspired you as I shared some more of my story and some of the things that have fueled me and have driven me in terms of, how I've been overlooked in certain situations, and probably the least of these, even when it comes to ministry. I didn't say this, as I said, I'm reserved, I'm quiet. No one expected me to be preaching the word of God. No one expected me to have a podcast. No one expected me to do these things and be able to communicate in the way that I do through the grace of God, obviously. But that's what drives me. The Lord drives me, as Jeremiah says, like fire shut up in my bones. And so what is that thing for you? Because when you find that thing and when you trust God with that thing, there's no limit. Eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard, neither have they entered into the hearts of men what the Lord is going to do through you. So I hope this episode encouraged you and inspired you on your journey. As always, make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to it on. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, all that. All the social media at Cole Therapy. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a like, leave a comment on this video. And I appreciate everyone that tunes in and supports the channel in any way, man. Whether you tell me that the word that was spoken was meant for you, or whether you just leave the like, I appreciate it. Or if you just watch, I appreciate you so much. And so, that's going to do it for this episode. As always, I am your host, Chae Cole. And until next time, peace.